I've been in sales since I was 16 years old. I went from selling suits to capital fundraising projects to agency services to SaaS to coaching programs worth over $200,000. And I've coached more than 2,000 agencies, founders, and sales reps to improve their close rate and make more money. In today's video, I'm gonna overwhelm you with over a decade worth of experience that is not found online. So the first idea here is you are the prize, not the prospect. And what most salespeople do is they treat the prospect with deference. They treat the prospect like they have to do anything, say anything, be the perfect person so that the prospect will buy from them. And this is the single biggest mistake that most sales reps make. Now, the reason that they make this mistake is because they are needy and they are desperate for that sale to close because they know that if they're a founder, that sale makes them money that allows the business to continue running. Or if they're a sales rep, that deal signing and closing puts money in their pocket. It is your job to figure out, is this person a good fit to work with the company that I work for if you're a rep? Or if you're a founder, is this person going to screw with my business? That is the number one question you need to ask yourself. And as a result of that, it is not your job to sell yourself to the prospect. You need to focus on disqualifying them out of the sales process. Now, the reason that you need to focus on disqualifying rather than actively trying to sell yourself is for three distinct reasons. The first one is you want to actively avoid bad fit clients. Now, what I mean by that is there are going to be certain people that work with you that are going to take more time, effort, and energy to simply get the bottom end of the bell curve results. Now, that could be because they genuinely aren't a good fit to work with you and you close them anyway. It could be that they in and of themselves have limiting factors on their success. Maybe their business isn't a good vehicle. Maybe them as founders or them as a team to operationalize whatever you sell isn't going to be a good fit. Or potentially the worst one here is they might genuinely just not be able to afford it and you've convinced them into buying it and now there's buyer's remorse that they can't really get out of. So immediately, the first principle here is do not work with bad fit clients. The second one is you need to understand that your entire job as a salesperson, whether you're a founder or whether you're a rep, is you have to live in a state of abundance. You cannot be outcome dependent. Whether this sale closes means absolutely nothing. What you have to realize is that you live in a state of abundance. There are always more deals, there are always more prospects, there is always more money to be made. And until you get to that point, you are going to continually struggle with feeling like you need to sell every single person that you speak to, with feeling like unless you close this deal, this is bad. Now, the minute that you step into abundance and you realize actually, there are more deals. Actually, my job here is to help someone make a decision that will benefit them. That is where you realize that actually there are certain people that you just don't want to work with, that you can't help. And you are able to make that decision on a sales call and walk away from deals that would otherwise hurt you and potentially would fall foul of the first piece of advice I gave you. Now, the third one is kind of related to both of those, which is disqualify people you can't help. Now, a lot of people that are watching this are going to look at this and say, well, I can help everyone. No, you can't. Don't be naive. And the minute that you think you can help everyone is where you start to fall foul of points 1 and point 2. Now, there are going to be certain instances where you have downsells or cross-sells or maybe an intro offer or a free trial or whatever. Now, those are the exception to the rule, not the rule in and of itself. If you have something that means that you can sell most people, you are still going to find the vast majority of instances where you still need to disqualify. You still need to actively flip the script and get people to sell themselves to you, because even if you have something for everyone, you are going to be able to get more buy-in from more people by pushing people away and leaning out versus leaning into the sale. Point number 2, asking more questions does not relate to a better sales call. Now, one of the things that I've seen a lot of sales coaches do is tell people that they don't ask enough questions. And I think that is fair advice, but it's not good advice. More questions are less effective than better questions. Now, this is a whole YouTube video in and of itself of what makes better questions versus more questions. But what you need to understand at its simplest idea, right? The principle, and if you don't understand what I mean by principle, go back and watch one of the other videos on my channel. The principle behind good questions is you need to understand the 5 whys framework, which I've also explained before. Asks, at its simplest state, why is that important? If that is important, what makes that something that I should care about? Okay, fine. Here's the reason why you should care about. Why is that reason important in and of itself? And if you keep tracking backwards again and again and again, you will eventually get to a root cause that is far more important than anything else. So most sales reps will try and make a formula out of this, where they will ask a question and then they will say something like, well, how come that happened? What makes that important? What's the knock-on effect of that? And they will treat them as almost individualized questions in a script. Now, what you can't do if you want this to be useful is treat this like a framework. You have to leverage the answers that people give you in the form of questions. That's what makes them good questions versus more questions. The second element of asking better questions instead of more questions is most people ask stupid questions. Now, when I say stupid questions, what I mean by that breaks down into 3 distinct camps. Stupid questions are questions that you don't already know the answer to. And in its most easily explained form, if you don't know intuitively what a prospect could answer when you ask a question, that is a stupid question, because their answer could lead you down a completely different track. Their answer could completely screw your sales process if you don't intuitively understand the answer to that question when you're in discovery. Another form of stupid question is questions that are easily Googleable. It is not your job to ask prospects questions that in theory you could have Googled, right? So do a bare minimum of research before calls. I'm not saying that you need to know everything about this business from when it started up until day dot. However, you should be able to understand what they do in theory. Ask clarifying questions if you need to, sure. But you should understand who they sell to. You should understand what the problems that they have are at a conceptual level. You can even use ChatGPT to help you with this knowledge. But don't ask questions that are in the prospect's mind easily Googleable, because it just shows you haven't done your research and they will not like it. They will think, therefore, you are stupid. And that is something that we want to actively avoid. And the final one is stupid questions can take the form of questions that don't drive the sale forward. Now, what I mean by that is if you ask questions that don't really lead the sale anywhere and they just act as an information gathering tool, it kind of pads the sales call because you didn't really know what to say. So I guess you asked this question because maybe it will be helpful at some point in the future. You're hurting yourself more than you're helping yourself. And the reason that this is so damaging is people don't tend to enjoy being asked questions by most people. You need to have a fair degree of rapport and an ability to ask questions in a non-aggressive way that means people are comfortable answering lots of questions. But if you are asking questions that they don't intuitively understand why you've bothered asking or why that is relevant, because in their mind and logically when you review that call, you'll realize it didn't move the sale forward, you will use up valuable question chips. Third tip, you need to lock in next steps. And this is something that I watch sales reps do over and over and over again, and it feels like common sense. But depending on whether your calls are 1 call, 2 call, 3+ call closes, it doesn't really matter the format. Concrete next steps are the thing that the prospect wants to feel a degree of psychological safety. They need to know that you are in control of this call, you know what's going to happen, you are guiding them to a solution that is going to benefit them. And if you don't provide those concrete next steps, the only thing that happens is prospects think that you are flying by the seat of your pants. That is going to decrease their trust in you as a salesperson, which is going to have a negative halo effect on everything else you do, including the offer that you sell overall. And that is where a lot of sales reps completely screw the pooch. You need, and so does the prospect, a really clear understanding of what happens next. Is there an audit? Is there some kind of sign off from the board that they're waiting for? Is there some kind of testing or implementation phase? Great, whatever the outcome is, the outcome of the next step is actually irrelevant to this whole process. You need to lock in a time or at least a time frame, right? You don't need a date on the diary necessarily. You just need an understanding of when insert thing here is going to happen. And if you do have that, that is going to give clarity to the prospect. It's going to give clarity for you so that you can update the CRM so that you know the best times to follow up. All of these factors are directly impacted by you having the ability to direct and guide where this sales call goes. The final part of this is, if the goal of every sales call is to drive the sale forward until completion, if you don't give the prospect next steps, they are going to find every conceivable reason to not drive the sale forward themselves. It is not their job to buy your thing. It is your job to sell the thing. Therefore, you have to be the one in control of pushing the sale forward. Without concrete next steps, the prospect is going to find a million reasons why they should go and do something different, why they should change their focus, why they should find any reason to not continue other than it makes sense to buy it. You cannot rely on prospects wanting to buy your thing to drive the sales forward. That is your job as a sales rep. Final one, and this is the one that I think 90% of reps and founders make the mistake of. The average attention span is supposedly 8 minutes if someone is paying 100% uninterrupted attention to you. If they're multitasking, which most people tend to do, they are going to drop their attention span to about 3 minutes, and this is backed with psychology studies. If they're on a Zoom call, the likelihood is they're multitasking. They're probably not giving you all of the attention that you think they are. There's notifications going off on the side, their phone is buzzing, they're probably listening in the background if they're working from home to kids screaming or their wife shouting at them from the other room. They are multitasking by definition. As a result, their attention span is 3 minutes. And even if it isn't 3 minutes and it's longer than that, if you work under the premise that the most attention that they will be able to give you is 3 minutes, you are doing something that will hedge your bets in your favor versus give you a worse outcome. With this in mind, if your sales pitch is longer than 3 minutes, you are banking on them giving you their full attention. And that is an immediate cause for concern. If you can make sure in your own mind that a sales pitch lasts for anywhere between 3 and 4 minutes, you are giving yourself the best chance to succeed. Now, a lot of people when they hear this are like, well, it's impossible to explain my product in 3 to 4 minutes. Potentially, then you need to go and do the work to shorten that pitch. Whether that is carte blanche for everyone, or whether that means tailoring the pitch to the most important elements to that prospect on the call based on the discovery that you have done, both of those are perfectly acceptable mechanisms of shortening the pitch. However, you have to shorten your pitches. It is implausible for you as a salesperson to work under the premise that everyone is going to listen to every word that comes out of your mouth. It just doesn't make sense to do that. If you can do this and you can shorten the pitch to about 3 or 4 minutes, you are going to give yourself the best chance of them retaining as much information as humanly possible, which is going to mean that you versus all of the competitors that are probably pitching very similar things, your prospect understanding of the thing that you sell is going to be infinitely better versus any of your competitors, which means you probably win more deals on average. The goal of shortening your pitch is not just to talk for less time, but it is to make your pitch more impactful. You need to focus on how you're going to solve the biggest 1, 2, or 3 problems that this business is facing. That is ultimately the goal of the pitch, is to show how the thing that you sell is going to benefit them in a tangible, realizable way. Now, if that means you shorten your pitch based on the specific problems that you found in the sales call, great. If that means that you can shorten your pitch carte blanche across everything by just being more succinct, more clear, and tying it to problems and their resultant outcomes, you've found a winner. If you keep them engaged throughout your pitch multiple times with very, very simple questions, yes/no questions, that keep tying back to problems and outcome solutions, that is how you are going to keep your pitch short and intriguing enough that they will pay attention continuously. Now you're going to be able to go out and crush your next sales calls. But before you do, I want you to click this video over here. And I want you to watch the video I made on 6 psychology hacks that you're going to be able to use to close more deals.